Mr. Mark Hall, here we are. It's been a little while. What's going on, buddy?
Not much, Brian. How you doing? Good to see you again.
I'm good. I'm good. I was on the road last week, spent some days in New York and then in Buffalo. Met with Cameron Winklevoss at Gemini for our business. It's been 6 years since we've been on their platform. It's been great. They're developing, they're getting some stuff built and better for us to service our clients. So that meeting went really well. Saw some of our other clients while I was in the city. Great weather, by the way. It was one of those like 72 dry, no clouds. The only misfortune I had when I was there, I always go to Shake Shack and I get a burger right there at Madison Square Park. I sat down to eat it. I had my suit on, and I guess I got the luck of the bird, a little bird poop on my sleeve. Luckily, it was at the end of the day. Had to get the suit cleaned.
Sorry to hear that, man. That's rough.
Oh, the things that happen. Then I get to Buffalo and it's like 40, 30 miles an hour, rainy. I had to like the puffy coat out. My God. Yeah.
It's a big contrast from what the 90-degree raw humidity we have right now in South Florida, right?
Yeah. Big time, big time, big time. All right. Let's cover two topics. We're coming at it blind. I know mine, you know yours. I'm going to let you rip. What do we got? What are we covering first?
All right. I'll kickstart. This is pretty recent news, but are you familiar with the proposed legislation called ARMA, the American Reserve Modernization Act? Heard about it yet?
Okay. And I am glad you are bringing something to me that I have not heard, because if it's coming from you with your background, some time at Sequoia, Google, we better pay attention. So let me get my notepad out.
Well, it's hot off the press. So this is a recent act that was proposed by House of Representatives alongside 16 co-sponsors. So the reason this is a big deal is bipartisan, designed to build upon the Bitcoin Act that Representative Senator Cynthia Lummis previously proposed. And this is essentially would codify the executive order around the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. And what's interesting here is not only do you have bipartisan co-sponsors, which oftentimes is a good indicator of how likely it will proceed through Congress. But this, just to highlight a few details, would create a 5-year plan for the Treasury to acquire up to 200,000 Bitcoin per year for those 5 years. So a pretty meaningful amount, coming up potentially to 1 million Bitcoin. And it really set in stone a lot of what the executive order was designed to do. Folks less familiar, when something's passed through executive order, the next administration could undo and unravel a lot. So by codifying it through law, through the House and Senate, it really sort of, cements it in. So this got announced last night, or either last night or early this morning. And I think what's interesting here, I have it on this screen, that's why I'm looking this way, is it really builds on the core foundations that Cynthia Lummis really put forward, that I think a lot of people were excited by, in terms of what department would be overseeing it, how it would ensure that Bitcoins that seized would not be sort of resold in the markets. I'm really excited personally. I'm kind of a policy wonk, but the way I look at it is the Bitcoin Act sort of version 1 hit some roadblocks. This, because of the fact that it's pretty bipartisan, could be a good sign forward. And it reinforces so much of what's happening in the market. So wanted to put that forward. Not sure if you've heard the news recently.
Okay. So, when this all started, it's, hey, how many units of Bitcoin does the United States government have? And you and I talked on this podcast before that it should be public in what's out there. So we still kind of don't know. They claim it's 300,000. But to acquire up to 200,000 more per year, there was the chatter before about how that would be done, and people were like, "Oh, you can't use taxpayer dollars." Has there been any comments? Have you seen anything about where the money would come from and how that would be used? Are we selling something else? Like, where could this funding come from?
That's a good question. The initial language hasn't clarified and codified it. I think that becomes the $1 million question, no pun intended. I think that's just important because that was a big issue before. Ultimately, I think folks who've really been in the space know that Treasury, Commerce can get really creative with where the funds come from, right? We have a lot of, people have spoken about gold being sort of priced relative to prior decades year. And if you sort of reprice it to today's figures, that would offset any amount you need to purchase something like Bitcoin. So there are probably a number of vehicles. The act, as is proposed yet, doesn't specify, but I think it's a good question.
All right. That's my homework. to look at it tonight and just see what all the like the brainiacs are saying, like where it's going to come from, because they solve that, and I think you get the rest of the votes if you need any, if anything's outstanding. Really, that's always the hang up is, the budget and where things are going. Interesting. All right. Well, like you said, the $1 million question is maybe that's what takes Bitcoin to $1 million, right? And what it is. And this might be more material stuff too that we got to cover in our newsletter that we're drafting right now. So I'll get with Mike and our team to see about including this on there. It's worth diving deeper. And then by the time we put out our newsletter a few more days from now, there'll probably be some more information on this and better clarification. So stay tuned, everybody. You're going to want to read the newsletter. All right. For you, the model portfolio, something we've talked about extensively outside of your help with us, like running the business overall and an advisor. We've been running it with Pure Crypto. It's going to be 8 years at the end of this month, something we're really proud of. Thank you. Avoiding impairment, but yet getting that outperformance. I think the dark days of crypto and, any shenanigans are long behind us. There will still be stuff in DeFi that exists out there. It's just the nature of the space. There's really no humans in control. There's some validators, but if there's a few $100 million on there and the code's not tight, you got to watch out for that stuff. But that's where it comes back to a business like ours. If you're not comfortable doing that stuff, that's where we're here. Richard Investment Advisor, we're a fiduciary in the space. We use a qualified custodian, which is Gemini. DFS, like I said, I was just there meeting with Cameron Winklevoss, us watching over them. This is a really secure environment. But where am I going with all this? Well, back to the model portfolio. We don't trade that often in it. It's not a day trading strategy. It's not an algorithmic strategy, as you know. But we recently made a change and a new investment. What was interesting about the change and what it is that this doesn't seem like a rising tide is going to float all boats again. Like this doesn't feel like an alt season type thing where everybody's just going to move. And maybe there is a period somewhere here where Bitcoin goes back above all-time highs, where things just kind of go up in periods. But when Bitcoin has those pullbacks on its way back to all-time highs, still these older projects, things that really just haven't materialized anything, are going to have really still sharp drawdowns. Okay. And so the new investment that we put on, it really feels to us now like October of 2023, when we put this position on, around similar levels. And then within 6 months, the product that we were in Solana then, that we bought for $27 in October. 6 months later, that was trading at almost 200. And so we sold it for clients in the model portfolio right around $190, 190, right below there. And there was a 3x outperformance to Bitcoin. And these moments may seem like they exist a lot in the crypto space, right? Like people associate crypto with moonshots, and that's easy to do looking back in the past and especially in 2021. But I think those days are over. But it's good to see that there's still stuff out there that can help the financial sector get better, right? And the democratization of investing, I think crypto is really doing it. And the market cap of this thing, the price we acquired it for clients and where we think it can go, is looking very favorable in what's coming up. You've seen it inside what it is. If somebody wants to learn about it, obviously this is the benefit of being a client of ours. Feel free to reach out. But what's your take on back to Bitcoin? We've seen outperformance now by the new investment that's in our portfolios together here the last week. But Bitcoin itself, 82, back down to 77. Great news today. Did Bitcoin move up? I've been jammed on back-to-back meetings here in the last few hours.
It's relatively flat, but I think you bring up a number of great points. And first off, super excited about that recent investment. I think ultimately and folks who are watching might be familiar with sort of how DAiM historically has thought about sort of these unique moments. But you're right. I similarly feel like every now and then you're able to, through the work of the team, research, a lot of diligence, get an understanding of when there's certain assets that are primed to break out, and recognize there are structural trends, right? There are tailwinds that are, moving the market forward. I firmly believe that there's more consolidation where a handful of assets, including this investment, including Bitcoin, where as people pay more attention, they'll recognize there were fewer and fewer winners, and there's going to be more attention, more capital allocated there. So I'm excited. And I think you're right. We're in the early days and early stages of, some really, really good outperformance. I think more Bitcoin broadly is where I spend a lot of time personally. I genuinely believe we're sort of at this interesting point where We've been consolidating around these levels. Likely this is jumping off point. There's a lot of quantifiable metrics that folks much smarter than me share regularly online. I think this is going to be generally a pretty good year ahead. The one thing I would urge everybody, I know we live generally in fiat terms, but at the end of the day, recognize Bitcoin is more than just number go up, right? There's a lot of reasons that folks are gravitating toward this. And at DAiM, we're excited to just give clients exposure to it, and ideally over time give more education around really what assets they're holding ultimately. But yeah, I think this is just a starting point. I'm excited about the year ahead, and I think for folks paying attention, narrowing your focus around the assets that matter, including Bitcoin, including what we're talking about more recently. That's what matters, right? Because there's a lot of noise out there. And I think a lot of the old projects, as you mentioned, they're going to be much, much less relevant in the future.
I had one client that hadn't looked in their portfolio, it's been a while, and was looking at the new investment and said, well, what about Solana? And I said, that was so 2023 and 2024. And then it went to, and I said, Ethereum's been missing too. That was very 2021. And it's true. It's like when you step back and you take a very far away view, some things just, they're still there. The ecosystem, right? Like there's a lot of tokenized assets trading on Ethereum, but it's on a lot of L2s, right? And that business didn't go to Ripple either, or XRP. They have a good job narrative with the army, but that's business that should have been won. But in a lot of the purpose outside of being an alternative store of value and Bitcoin, isolated from all the other assets, you got to have something new that helps people, that brings value to the table. You can't just say you're going to do something anymore. You got to show it. Something you said that was really unique just now about Bitcoin's not just about number go up. On my trip, I had to take a break. I was all over the city. And I started at Madison Square Park, down to Wall Street, and then I was up to like 56 and Lex, and then back around, and all over between subway and taxis. And the city was super busy. Like the intersections were jammed, and people don't, they're still crossing without waiting for the light, and the honking and stuff. But so I stopped to get a late lunch at a hotel. A nice hotel, the Jane down in Soho. And the bartender there, I was talking to another person about real estate, heard me on a phone call about Bitcoin. And it was that old adage, he didn't have any, he wasn't that old, but he had some rental properties. He talked a bit about his struggle. Yeah, you get, there's some tax advantages, but he still gets the phone calls about the flooded toilet. And I said, look, we've got real estate guys that look at this. 1 unit of Bitcoin is like 1 acre of land. And that's actually what resonated with him the most, was like, wow, I got something that's treated like property by the IRS that I can diversify into and not have to worry about, changing the windows or, an AC breaking or a flooding toilet. And yeah, there's the income factor of it, but the price appreciation on property, is this going to continue rampantly? Maybe not as much as the actual annualized gains of Bitcoin. So I believe this guy, when it comes into capital, or he does rotate out of one of these properties, give him a hard time, is going to be at least a whole Bitcoiner. And there's so many more people out there to do this.
I couldn't agree more. I'll tell you, through my network, some of the content and podcasts I consume, I'm hearing the exact same thing where, look, I think the narrative has always been clear. We always advise clients move towards hard and scarce assets, Bitcoin being sort of the leading one. Real estate historically has been an incredible investment category, undoubtedly, right? It's very clear that for investors who do it for income yield or do it for long-term appreciation, the toll that it takes, you're right, for the being a landlord, the maintenance requests, right, the taxes, all the implications that require effort, when you compare it to an asset like Bitcoin and the upside potential, just night and day. And I think you're going to see a big shift over the next few years. It's just more of an education, right? There's a lot of folks who are less comfortable with Bitcoin because their advisor hasn't shared it, or their cousin hasn't purchased any. As the world shifts, we're going to look back in 10 years, and anybody who's not in this category is going to be in the minority. I think you're right. It's just a great observation you made. It's kind of exciting to be in the early days where we can kind of influence some of these conversations and be engaged. It's what it is. It's a reality that when you're early, you see these indicators and you see it compound more and more. But it's our job to make sure that we're like the best advocates, out in the ecosystem. And I think we're doing that.
That's right. That's what we do. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap it up. And Check out our newsletter because we're going to have to dive deeper into Mark's topic and the strategic reserve and seeing what's going on there and where this money's going to come from to buy 200,000 units potentially a year. I like this. All right, Mark. See you, buddy.
Take care.
This is for educational purposes only, not personalized financial advice. All investments, including crypto, carry risk, including loss of principal, and past performance does not guarantee future results.